Hello and welcome to another episode of Bare Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. This episode I'm going to do part 2 of my prototype, Alexander at the End of the World. I left off with the Scythian Expedition, a successful one there, for those of you who watched part 1. And we're going to go ahead and launch a second expedition, which you can do, where you can just launch the one, which will secure the border, as we left off last time, and eliminate any negative die roll that will impact rebellions on the spaces that are adjacent to the Scythian space. So, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch a second one just to show you how it works. So the first one is pretty basic and straightforward. Second one kind of runs the same way. If you launch a second expedition, which Alexander could have done, he chose not to go deeper into Scythia, although there was some discussion about that and wheeling his way around towards the Caspian Sea and all. He did not. So if you choose a second expedition and beyond, again, we'll start out with same thing as before. 3 combat dice as the base against 2 for the Scythians. You can add 1, risk Alexander's health if you wish, and plus 1 per every 2 general involved. Okay. However, this time a little different. Wounds are like normal, like we've already done before with the combat, but any triple dice, like triple 4, triple 3, whatever, will automatically kill one of the supporting generals that Alexander has. Okay. And of course, because going further into the unknown and further away from Macedonia, it also will reduce Macedonian morale. So you are kind of taking a big gamble to do this. And if Alexander should happen to lose and you decide to pull back, which would be very un-Alexandrian of you, then you will have a further morale penalty, both of those being D6. And I use the D6 because things like that is very unpredictable. You just don't know how people are going to react. Even seasoned soldiers, veterans and stuff, sometimes people reach their breaking points, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes things don't bother people, and then other times the littlest thing can be like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch another expedition. I will go ahead and risk Alexander for a 4th die. I'll risk his health, although his health is at 7. And remember, his health cannot be recovered. And then I will roll the 2 Scythian dice, and then we'll go from there. So, Alexander continuing his Scythian expedition. We're going to roll 4 dice. Okay, now we got the good numbers as far as increasing stability goes. However, we also have 2 5s, which of course means that there is the potential for one of our 3 generals to be killed in action. Now, Scythian resistance this time is actually pretty good. The Scythian resistance is an 8, so we will of course figure out the difference there. Okay, so let's start first. Alexander risked himself, so we got to see if he gets any kind of injury. Of course, he didn't roll any 1s. 2 1s, I should say. So remember, 2 or more 1s, Alexander automatically suffers a wound. Ooh, this was close though. Alexander rolled an 8. 9 to 11 would cause 1 health point loss, and then of course 12 would be even more. Now, of course, as the generals go, let's see which one randomly picked. We're going to have Cletus the Black is at risk here with plus 5 to the die roll, because again, the 5s there are the modifier. So 6 plus 5 is 11. So Cletus is lightly wounded, and again, anytime I just have a lightly wounded general, I always put them in the command point box to make it easier to remember next turn to bring them back. Alright, so Alexander had 19 versus 8. So 19 versus 8, that is a difference of 11. So definitely seems to be worth it in terms of stability. So now stability is up to 33. But now we also have to check morale, because again, we're going further and further into places that the unknown and stuff that can affect Macedonian morale. And Macedonian morale was affected quite a bit. It dropped 6. So we dropped all the way down to 12. So now we're getting dangerously close to potential mutiny territory. However, Alexander is now pleased with what he's accomplished. So for game purposes, I use a blue block like this to basically show the sealing off of the border, and Alexander is finished. Now Alexander, of course, has no more command points. The box is empty. We basically used our last one to launch into Scythia. So now we'll go to the rebellion phase. Let's see if there's any kind of rebellion. Okay, again, Rebellion is rolling basically the 2d6 like this. So again, first one, well, I should have that flipped around. First one is the 10s, the second one is the 1s. So in this particular case, 31. And I'll check my handy dandy chart that I have here, and let's see if we get any kind of rebellion this time around. Yes, actually we are going to have one in, again, I'm probably butchering some of these names, this base here of Chorasmia. So, this is how rebellion works. First of all, anytime there's rebellion, you re-intensify the resistance pool. So we're going to take all the used resistance points, resistance cities, however you care to think of them, and we dump them back into the pool and mix that all up. Okay. Next thing we do is we're going to consult the rebellion chart and see what resistance level table we're going to get. Now again, any cities, any colonies, any Macedonian governors are going to increase that. In this case, we only have a city, so it will be a +1 to the die roll. So 7 plus 1 is going to be 8. So 8 will get a level 3, which is pretty strong. So level 3, a +1 to the die roll because it is a red space, a wilderness / rough space. So that is a 9. So when we look at the chart here, 3 with a 9, that is going to be 5 cities that are going to be in revolt. Now, what I do to make sure that I don't forget about revolts, because if you don't crush revolts that begin by the following turn, then you will lose stability. Okay? So in this case, if this revolt here is not destroyed, then of course we will lose stability points. So I have the big red block there, and I'll zoom in since it's the first time we've done this. So I have the big red block there in the province, province resistance level box, which of course now there is new resistance, it is a rebellion, and it is a reminder that there are going to be 5 cities pulled from the pool as Alexander goes there. Now of course remember, Alexander can also detach leaders, and he can go ahead and send them on their own expedition, which I might do just to show you how that works, rather than having Alexander march in, which I could do. But again, for the purposes of showing as much as I can of the game and the rules, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so that's the rebellion. We don't have to worry about mutiny yet, because it's a 12. Remember, 2d6 mutiny check, and it has to be higher. So right now that is not possible. So we'll move on to the next turn. Cletus the Black has returned to the fold here. We'll roll our 4d6. Ooh, not so good. We only got 10 points for command points this time. Now that means no, excuse me, no random events, so we don't have to worry about that. And again, I'm still toying around with the rule that if it's less than 14, if it's 13 or less, then we roll for Alexander's health to see if his health is becoming an issue. Because again, Alexander, if you studied him like I have, and you know, he just pushed himself relentlessly, and some of the things he did is just like, what in the world? Alright, so since we have these, I'm going to go ahead and show off some other features of the game here. Okay, one of the things you can do with your command points in the Alexander phase is you can remove a general. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove Cletus the Black from the game. That will cost me 2 action points, or 2 command points. I kept going back and forth between command and action points, to be honest, as far as the game went, which way I wanted to do it. And then you can replace him with any one of Alexander's subordinate generals, if you want to think of it that way, or at the time not part of the old guard, not Philip's men, if you will. And again, I have it set up so that the leaders, again, they have the ability to recap, for those who might not have seen the first part of this. If you're with Alexander, or they're attached to Alexander, they're in the box with Alexander, then of course you have the modifier where they add 1 to any one die roll, increasing it. If they are detached, then they add 1 die in a flying column in the same province. However, if they are detached to a province different from Alexander, then they have their own special abilities based on their skills. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and promote Cneus because he, if I detach him, he will have 2 dice for a foray to crush the rebellion in Khorezmia. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate here at this point. Alright, so rather than sending Alexander in to deal with this rebellion, I'm going to have Alexander hang out in the expedition space and kind of recoup and recover, if you will. Almost forgot, with Cletus removed, anytime one of the old guard is removed, then you also have consequences. So we're going to impact Macedonian morale. Bleh, can't talk here. It was a 5. Divided in half, that's 2.5, rounded down to 2. So now Macedonian morale is getting to the point where it's going to start becoming an issue. It is now down to a 10. Okay? Alright, so since it's down to a 10, before I detach these guys, I'm going to spend 3 command points and spend one of my speeches. And I'm going to go ahead and have Alexander give one of his rousing speeches to increase Macedonian morale. Now again, if Alexander does it, in a situation like this, where there isn't a full-blown mutiny yet, then you get 2d6 value, which is a 6 this time. So that'll take it back up to 16. That's not too bad, okay? But again, you only have 4 of those in the entire game. And if it's actually done in response to a mutiny, you only get half of the 2d6 rounded down. So Alexander's built the morale back up, okay, at this point. So now we're going to detach these leaders on into the province to deal with this rebellion. And again, normally, given the situation here, I probably would just march Alexander in because there's still provinces that need to be quelled. But since that's not the case here, or I should say not the case, but the fact that I want to demonstrate the rules, I'm going to show you how to detach into a separate province and do the combat there. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 2 action points, and I'm going to detach both Canius and Parmenio into the province here. Okay, so that will take me down to 3 command points at this point in time. Alright, now, when you detach into a separate province, automatically you get 1 combat die, and then whatever the special ability is of the generals you have detached. In this particular case, because Parmenio and Canius were both excellent generals, they would add 2 dice. So you're going to have 5 dice altogether to deal with these 5 cities. So let's see how that's going to play out here in this rebellion and see if these guys can crush this rebellion. Now, of course, since Alexander's not present, if we roll 2 or more 1s, Alexander obviously will not be injured. Oh, well, what do you know? So they went into this province here, and I did roll 2 snake eyes, but I also rolled a 6, 5, and a 4. Okay. Now, if it's the 2 snake eyes, and again, only the snake eyes or more impact Alexander, so now I won't roll for wounds for Parmenio or Canius. Okay, but I still have to draw the cities. So let's get the 5 cities out. And let's see what's going to happen here with the 5 cities. So 4 and a 5th one right here. Okay. All right. So actually things are not too bad. Okay. All right. So when we deal with the cities here, down here at the bottom of the page, and again, I apologize for the white on white, but I wasn't sure how I was going to make the map and what material I was going to use originally. So, all right. So the 6 will beat the 5. That's not a problem. Okay. 5. Remember, if there's a tie, you lose 1 morale point. So Macedonian morale will now drop down by 1. And we do have a bit of a problem. We have the 4 against the 3, which is fine. But the 2 versus 1, we're not going to be able to crush that one. And then the 1 versus 1. So we're actually going to lose 2 more morale. And this 2 city will be back, hanging out. So this is taking a bit longer than one would anticipate. Okay. And again, I know Alexander did not have as many problems as some of the things that my game portrays. But, I mean, it could have happened. And part of, in my opinion, part of doing history is also to mess around with what might have happened as well as what actually happened. So at this point, I can have these 2 again activate, which would cost me another 2 command points, and I can have them go ahead and finish crushing the rebellion. Now again, if they don't crush the rebellion this turn, then I will have to roll a d6 and reduce stability, because of course with a rebellious province, that's going to be an issue. So obviously I will spend the 2, spin this down to 1 command point, And again, we'll have the 5 dice, which, should make things pretty easy, you would think. And it does, except of course I did roll a pair of 4s. So we will crush this last remaining city, and we'll remove, of course, these items, because we don't need them at this point in time. We will have to figure out which one of the 2 heroes, randomly. We'll have the +4 modifier. For injury, it will be Knias. So, Knias, +4. Uh-oh. This is looking high. Oh, no. 10 plus 4 is 14. Now, that's the highest number we've had so far. So, 14 with leaders is extremely severe, potentially a severe wound. Okay? So, we're going to roll d6, have it, round down, and we'll see how many turns Knias will be out of action. It is a 6. Ooh, it is a 3. Yikes, I hate to lose him for 3 turns. And again, since there's no turn track or anything like that, you can use any track that you want. I'm going to use the Alexander Health, but you could use Stability, you could use Macedonian Morale. It wouldn't matter. Now, Parmenio will stay in the province because, remember, he hasn't been recalled. That costs 3 command points to bring back the whole force to reattach and then go forward from there. So, even if Alexander, and I could do this, I could have Alexander march into here next turn, I still would need the 3 points to reattach, which basically reflects the logistical and organizational reality of trying to put everything back together and get rolling again. Now, since basically nothing, let me just double check, I'm almost 100% sure, there ain't nothing except detaching a leader. And I can't, Alexander's in the space there, I can't appoint any governors because the Scythian expedition space is basically designed to be just that. It's Scythian territory, but we went up there and, basically let them know there's a new sheriff in town, so to speak. Like kind of Caesar crossing into Germania, building that bridge, going over there, kicking Dupe all over the place, and then coming back and burning the bridge down just to show the Germans, look, stay on your own flipping side and, behave yourselves. So, that kind of thing. Alright. So, unfortunately, I'm just going to have to lose that last command point because you can't save command points from turn to turn. So that one we'll just take away. And again, we'll do a rebellion check, which again, the deeper Alexander goes, the more likely things happen. And I do have the table weighted historically towards some spaces that had more rebellions, maybe more leaders. As I mentioned before, some of the historical individuals that cause trouble in like Bactria and Sardinia. I'm working on that as just an optional rule because again that started to get a little more complicated and more chrome than I wanted to do with this particular game. So I rolled a 26 on the rebellion table. Let's see what that gives us. 26. Okay, that is Bactria, so we don't have to worry about that because that of course hasn't been subdued yet and can't have rebelling something that hasn't been subdued. Morale's fine. There's a 13, but again, we're getting kind of low, so we'll have to keep that in mind. And we're on to the next turn. Now, of course, we'll slide Knias down because he'll still be out for a couple of turns here. Alexander's command points. Again. Okay, so we've got 6 and 6. We got 12 this time. Okay. Well, again, there'll be no random event. But again, in the future, I'm still toying with this, and of course still doing some ideas and playing with stuff and messing with some rules, fine-tuning some things. Again, there might be the Alexander health check in the future. Okay? Alright, so no random events, so let's get this show on the road, as Barnum and Bailey would have said. So Alexander will have to pay 3 to move to in what was this rebellious province last turn. Another 3 to reattach Parmenio and all his troops that were detached in that province. Now Alexander could stop and build a city if he wanted to here, but we could of course just keep driving south into Parthia, or of course we could go to Aurea. Now of course someone pointed out some of the feedback I already got, which I do appreciate from folks. There's nothing to stop Alexander from marching straight into India, Ganges expedition, and that's true. But all the provinces need to be subdued because the one thing Alexander would have wanted to do, and part of the reason he kind of did all this, was to establish his legitimacy as the great king, since Darius was betrayed by some of his inner circle and, of course, assassinated. And then Alexander felt like he had to go back through and quell all these places for the empire that he had seized, but now he had to kind of tame as well, too. Okay? All right, so you know what we're doing? We're just going to move down to Parthia then. So we'll move in here. That costs us 3 points. Okay, let's see what we get here for resistance. We have another guarded pass and a level 3. Now again, the tactic of a guarded pass, the highest city, the highest resistance point, will get +1 to it. Now it is wilderness, that'll be +1 for the rebellion, or for the resistance rather, right this time around. So that's a 7. 3 with a 7, that is a 4. So it'll be 4 cities that are there. Now the question is, I could do this a couple of ways. I could detach Parmenio and Philotas, father and son team. I could keep them with me and risk Alexander and keep my 3 points, and then I could like build a city or even a colony before I move on to other places. Or of course I could save the 3 points and remove one of them, and then turn around and replace them with some of my buddies, as it were. Okay. I'm also toying around with the rule that says you have to remove Philotas and Parmenio on the same turn, because of course they're father and son. So that, I mean, is also a possibility. Right now I don't technically have that rule, but I am kind of leaning towards implementing that because it does make a lot of sense from a standpoint of morale and historicity. And of course the idea of fracturing the army would have been a very bad idea too. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to risk Alexander's health to get that 4th die. So I'll roll 4 dice. I'll keep the commanders with me. And again, they will give me the ability to increase the value of 1 by 1. Interesting die roll. So I got a 4 and 3 3s. So that means one of the 2 of them could end up with some trouble. I should just do this down here. Whoops, that was a 3. Should do this down here to be easier. Okay. But of course now I also have to see about Alexander. So let's start with Alexander. I risked his health. Ouch. That was a bad plan. I rolled a 9, so his health decreases again. And again, if his health goes off the track, basically to 0, then that's it. Then you're done and you score your final victory points as a result. Okay. Now we also have the father and son team here. It is going to be son with a +3. 7 and 3 is 10, so he's fine. That's not a problem there. Okay? Alright, now we got to pull the 4 cities and see how hard this is going to be. We might need another round of battle here. That is true. Or maybe not. Got a bunch of 2s so far. Okay. Interesting. Alright, now I can spin this up to a 5, so I, of course, will do that. Take this from a 4 to a 5, so that will quell the 5. I can spin one of these up using the other general there to a 4. These 3s beat the 2s, so the 5s are equal, so we will lose 1 morale point in this expedition. And then, of course, the rest of it is crushed. But again, we did have Alexander suffer a point of loss for his health. So his health is now down to 6. So we're going to need to keep an eye on that as we progress through here. So this is, of course, now quelled. I've got 3 points left. It costs 2 points to remove a general of the old guard, of Philip's guard. So that's not a lot. So you know what? I'm just going to spend my 3 points, and I'm going to put a colony in Parthia. And we'll see if that helps stability or not. Probably won't, but we'll see. Okay. 7. Well, what do you know? Actually, I got away with that one. Okay, that's right on the edge, though. So the people were not happy about it, but they also didn't get too rowdy about it. Okay. So 3 7s are 10. We're now up to 40 points of stability, so not too bad on the stability track. Okay. But now, of course, the deeper we go, the further this goes, the more likely the rebellion is. Okay. And of course, I've also we're going to have an optional rule that you could do a die roll to see if there's even a rebellion to begin with. I've just been doing it this way as I've gone along. I think it makes the game more challenging. That's my personal opinion. Where basically you can have a rebellion anywhere except where Alexander is. So let's see if we get any kind of rebellion here. Excuse me. Let's see. And no. We rolled a 16. That's Bactria, but Bactria is not subdued. Mutiny is not a problem yet, although again we're right on the edge with that 12. So we're ready to move on to the next turn. So Caneus now will be back after this turn, back in action after his very bad wound and helping to suppress the rebellion before. Alright, so 9 and 4. I got 13 command points, so again, no random event. Okay, but I am going to go ahead and remove Parmenio and his son, and I'm going to pick up, replace them with 2 commanders, and then of course once the old guard is gone, once Philip's men are gone, then I can go ahead and start to bring in my buddies by using just 1 command point to do that. Okay, so Parmenio being removed causes morale loss of 3. It's a total die roll, so that takes it down to 9. His son will be half rounded down. Ooh, that's another 2. Yikes. So we're down to there. Okay, so that took me 4 points to do that, and then I replaced them with Seleucid and Craterus is who I replaced the 2 of them with. So that was tricky business, and of course you know the history. It was very tricky business. It was kind of dicey too, as well. Alright, well given where the morale is, I think I'm going to have to do another speech. I don't think I have a choice here. So I will spend 3 action points, 3 command points, however you want to do it. I mean, I'm not sure what the final terminology is going to be. Who am I kidding? We will spend another speech. So we'll take away the 3 command points. Ooh, 10. Good roll. So that takes us all the way back up to 17. Alright. Excellent, yes. So that was a good speech Alexander gave to keep things under control. Okay. Now, the question is, where do I go next? Because I do have to be careful with Alexander's health. I could go all the way to India, but I could also go other places too. To be honest, most of the time I've been following a pretty traditional route for Alexander, although I've tried other things, and obviously since the suggestion was pointed out to me, next time I'm going to try just driving straight east into the India areas there, maybe even the Ganges expedition, and turn around and conquer the rest of the empire. We'll see. Because again, it comes down to the legitimacy. So if you want to win the game, you got to control all, you got to subdue all the provinces in the end. So, all right. So I could bring in the rest of my crew. There's 4 leaders that are still out. I got 6 points. That would leave me with 2. You know what? Let's do that. I'm going to bring in all my boys. So now they'll all be here. And Caneus will be back. So that'll be good too. So Paradocus and Hephaestion, Polyperchon, Ptolemy, they're all here. Okay. So that will take me down to 2 points. And then with the last 2 points, I will go ahead and build a city in Parthia. And we'll see if that helps my stability or not. It did last time with the colony, which was a bit of a surprise, but whoops. Dice trying to get away. It's a 10, so again, they didn't care for it, so that didn't work out so well. Okay. Alright, rebellion phase. See if we got any kind of rebellion bubble in here. Nope. It would be Aria, and that is not, again, it's not even been subdued yet, so you can't have that. Mutiny's not a problem, because the Macedonian morale is on 17. So now we're ready to go ahead, move on to the next phase. Caneus comes back, so all of Alexander's boys are ready to roll, and we're ready to continue conquering the empire. Okay. Now at this point, I think I've shown you everything. I've detached leaders into a province separately with a rebellion. We did the expedition space, and again, the Ganges expedition is similar. It's a little bit tougher because, of course, legend has it that there was an army of 200,000 and things of that nature and stuff, which later on in history that may have actually been an accurate assessment. I'm trying to remember the exact details. It's a little bit later in the evening, but I'm trying to get this done today because today's my best day to do all of this. Because as those of you know, I've stepped away from the channel for the most part, partly because I just don't have the time, and today I just happened to have it, and I had this thing basically in pretty good shape, so I wanted to share. But I'm trying to remember who it was. It was oh shoot, they even have an empire in card in History of the World. Can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyway, one of the future Indian rulers basically verified that, yeah, man, this Genghis Empire was badass. It was huge and all that stuff. So, but again, my game here, I've got a little bit of a problem. Morale's pretty good, but Alexander's health is quite low. And remember, with the game, you can end it if Alexander dies. His health gets to 0. Macedonian morale collapses is the other way to end it. And of course the other way is to actually conquer all the territories. Then begin the long trek back home to Babylon. Which of course Alexander will meet his demise there in the future. So there's basically everything there. And as I mentioned before too, I also have a rule to deal with Upper India for the Battle of Hydaspes. Basically when you enter there, it's very similar to the expedition thing as well too. However, the number of dice is a little bit up in the air. I made that for the Ganges and for the Hydaspes. So what basically happens is you kind of start off like the Scythian thing. Alexander has 3 dice. You can increase it, risking plus generals committed, and you can increase it. Porus begins with 2 dice, and then you reach into the resistance cup and you pull a marker out, and that actually is the final number of dice. So for example, Alexander begins with his 3 dice, and let's say you up Alexander to 6 dice. Well, Porus begins with 2, but if the number you pull out of the cup ends up being 5, 2 plus 5 is 7, so it's actually Alexander rolling 6 dice against Porus's 7. And the same thing is very similar how I set it up with the Ganges Empire, because again, the Ganges was just such an unknown, and of course you're going to take a serious hit on Macedonian morale if you kind of really go that way and stuff. But I mean, if you got speeches left, and you can boost it before you go, or boost it right after you're done if you have enough command points. So that's, it's just all part of the game, all part of the strategy. So there you have it. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the game. I know it's not the most complex game, but I wasn't trying to go for that. As I've gotten older, I really have enjoyed games that are simple without being simplistic, but give that feel, that experience. And again, I think I've mentioned before in older videos, but just to kind of reiterate the point, games like Tarawa, 1943 from Worthington, or even, Utmost Savagery, which, it's very simple, straightforward rules, but it works. It gives you that feeling, that intensity, that making your tough decisions, what you're going to do, how you're going to handle things, are you, the end of game factors that are involved there too. A little more structured than what I have here, I admit. And that's one thing that I kind of toyed with quite a bit before I just decided that, this really is all about Alexander surviving. I mean, let's face it, because, until he died, everything was held together with the force of his personality. Years ago when I used to teach, I used to classify every one of my classes every year. It was either an Alexandrian class where I held it together with the force of my personality, or it was, I like to call them, Roman Republic classes, which, a lot of kids that just followed the rules and they bought into the procedures, and, they enjoyed everything and stuff, and I did not have to exert that force, if you will, of personality to hold everything together. So that's the reason I kind of made this dependent on that, or of course the collapse of Macedonian morale, because that's, what happened historically. So anyway, so there you have it. This is my tentative prototype on Alexander to the End of the World, which again covers the space between Gaugamela and when Alexander turned home to head through the Gedrosian desert on his way back to Babylon. So, as far as I know, there's nothing really quite that fills that gap. So, Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Feel free to give feedback in the comments. I've also posted a thread on Board Game Geek in the War Game section that literally, says, like, hey, I'm looking for feedback for my game, so, please provide if you would like, kind of thing, as well. Okay? I don't know the next time I'll see you, to be honest. It could be very early in 2025, kind of like last year, when I did my 10 best, or however many best, new, best and worst new to you for 2024. Because I have had a number of new games come my way. I've tried out some games. I've picked up some things over the course of this year. Like I start making a list of games I've played for the first time to kind of put that together. So may end up doing that depending on circumstances, I guess is the best way to put it. Alright, so that is basically a wrap. That should give you an idea of all the aspects of the game. I can't think of anything I left out that's covered here in the basic structure of the game. So, as always, this is Tim Korchnoi from Bare Bones Wargaming, saying thanks for watching, and again, comments, feedback is appreciated, as this really is the first design I've made that I've been happy with, and I feel has legs. For those of you who are longtime watchers of the channel, of course, the carrier game I had, and I've just never been completely happy with it. But then again, excuse me, I was thinking about that earlier today, and I was thinking, you know what, maybe I should just write everything up, write the rules, make a list of all the cards that are in the decks and stuff that I have for that, and maybe just put it out there and see what people think. Because maybe if I'm not 100% happy with it, it doesn't mean that people might not enjoy it, you know what I mean? So, we'll see. But that's on the back burner until I get this polished up, start writing up the rules and things of that nature. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again sometime.